4. Repeat the action today. Do the tiny action once, right now if possible. Don't wait for motivation or the perfect moment. By taking even one step, you send your brain a fresh message. This is who I am becoming. Step 5. Say the identity out loud. Speak your new identity sentence softly or write it down again. This helps your mind connect the words with the action you just took. Even a quiet reminder strengthens the belief. Step 6. Track your proof. At the end of the day, write one line of evidence that supports your new identity. It can be the tiny action you completed or any small moment where you acted like the version of yourself you chose. By doing this exercise every day, even in a very small way, you slowly replace your old identity with a new one. Each tiny action becomes a brick in the foundation of who you are becoming. Over time, your actions and your identity start to match, and you begin to live as the person you always knew you could be. Micro wins reinforce the identities we want, giving us real, visible proof that we are becoming the person we say we are. When you choose a new identity, like, I am someone who keeps moving, or I am a person who takes care of myself, it can feel shaky at first. You may want to believe it, but part of you still doubts it. Micro wins are the small actions that make that new identity feel real. Each tiny action becomes a message to your brain. This is who I am now. When you write one sentence, your mind says, maybe I really am a writer. When you take a 2-minute walk, it whispers, maybe I am someone who cares for my health. When you clean one corner of your room, you quietly prove, I am someone who creates order. These small wins are like little pieces of evidence that build your belief, drop by. None. Micro wins also work because they are easy to repeat. Big wins might give you a short burst of pride, but they are hard to maintain. Small wins, on the other hand, can happen every day. The more often you repeat them, the faster your identity grows. You don't need perfection. You just need consistency. With every small success, your confidence strengthens, and your new identity becomes a natural part of how you see yourself. Over time, these tiny victories add up. They turn your identity from a hopeful idea into a lived reality. You stop trying to become the person you want to be and start acting like them without forcing it. Micro wins don't just create progress. They create a new version of you, one tiny moment at a time. Negative identity stories hold people back by making them believe they are limited before they even try. These stories often come from past mistakes, old habits, or things other people once said. Over time, they sink in and start to feel like the truth. A person might think, I'm always lazy, or I never finish anything, or I'm just not smart enough. None of these statements describe who they really are. They describe who they used to be or who they fear they are. When someone repeats a negative identity story, they begin to act in ways that match it. If they believe they are inconsistent, they hesitate to start new things because they expect themselves to fail. If they think they are not the type to exercise, they avoid even tiny steps that could help them grow. The story becomes a cage, and the person starts living inside it without ever testing its walls. These identity stories also drain motivation. When you think badly about yourself, taking action feels pointless. Why try if you already believe you can't change? This mindset stops progress before it begins. It creates a loop. The person avoids action because they doubt themselves. And because they take no action, the story seems even more true. The truth is that negative stories are not facts. They are echoes. Echoes from old experiences, old seasons of life, or old versions of ourselves. They only stay alive if we keep feeding them. The moment someone takes a small step forward, the story begins to crack. One tiny action is enough to show that the past does not define the future. With new actions come new stories, and with new stories comes a new identity. Letting go of negative identity stories doesn't require a dramatic transformation. It begins with a single micro-win, one small act that proves the story wrong. Bit by bit, these wins create a new voice, a new belief, and eventually a new identity strong enough to carry someone forward. Repeating small wins builds belief by giving your mind a steady stream of proof that you are capable of growth. Every time you complete a tiny action, you send yourself a simple message. I can do this. One small win might not feel powerful on its own, but when you repeat it day after day, something begins to shift inside you. At first, the win feels like a task. You drink a glass of water each morning, write one sentence, take a short walk, or clean one small spot. These actions are quick and easy, so you don't need motivation to complete them. But as you keep repeating them, they stop feeling like chores and start feeling like evidence. And your brain pays attention to evidence. Each small win becomes a vote for your new identity. One vote doesn't change much, but hundreds of votes create certainty. When you do something again and again, you no longer have to convince yourself. You start to believe it. You begin to think, I really am someone who shows up. Or, I really am someone who improves. That belief grows quietly when mine in the background, stronger with each repetition. Small wins also build belief because they remove doubt. When you succeed in tiny ways every day, it becomes harder for negative thoughts to take control. You have too much proof that you can take action. Even on hard days, you can still collect a small win, and that consistency becomes part of your identity. Over time, the belief that started as a whisper becomes a solid truth. The tiny steps you repeated form the foundation of a new mindset. Confidence grows not from big achievements, but from the steady rhythm of small wins that show you who you are becoming. But as children form their identity through repetition long before they understand the word identity. They learn who they are by doing the same small things again and again, and by noticing how the world responds to those actions. Each repeated behavior becomes a quiet signal that shapes how they see themselves. When a child draws every day, even if it's just simple shapes, they begin to think, I like creating things. When it fades and they help clean up their toys, they start to believe, I am someone who is responsible. When they practice tying their shoes, sounding out words, or sharing with others, each repetition strengthens a tiny piece of their self-image. They don't decide this identity with words. Their actions build it for them. Repetition also affects how children feel about their abilities. A child who hears, good job, you tried again, after repeating a small task, learns that effort matters. A child who practices something many times starts to see improvement, and that improvement tells them, I can grow. Over time, this belief becomes part of who they are. They trust themselves because they have seen themselves succeed in small ways. Children also repeat emotional patterns. When they experience kindness often, they start to believe the world is safe. When they practice gratitude or patience, even in tiny moments, they slowly build a sense of calm and confidence. These repeated experiences shape not only what they do, but how they feel about themselves. In the end, a child's identity is not formed by one big moment. It is formed by countless small actions, choices, and experiences stacked on top of each other. Repetition teaches them who they are, what they can do, and how they fit into the world. And even as adults, the same rule applies. Identity grows through small acts repeated over time. Identity stacking is the idea of building who you are through small layers of identity, added one at a time. Instead of trying to become a completely new person all at once, you grow by stacking tiny, positive identities on top of each other. Each identity is simple, gentle, and believable, and each one is supported by small actions you can repeat every day. For example, someone might start with the identity, "I am a person who takes small steps." After repeating tiny actions, they begin to believe it. Once that identity feels solid, they add another one, like, "I am someone who keeps my space clean." Later they might add, "I am someone who chooses healthy habits," or "I am someone who follows through." None of these identities are extreme or overwhelming. Each one is a small layer that builds on the one before it. Identity stacking works because it doesn't require perfection. Each new identity is supported by tiny actions, like drinking a glass of water, reading for a few minutes, or organizing one corner of a room. When you repeat these actions, the identity becomes real. When the identity becomes real, it becomes easier to add the next one. Over time, these layers form a stronger, clearer sense of self. Instead of relying on willpower or motivation, you rely on who you believe you are becoming. The stacked identities create a foundation that feels steady and natural. They help you act in ways that match your values without forcing yourself. In the end, identity stacking shows that major transformation doesn't come from one big declaration. It comes from many small identities built slowly, patiently, and consistently. Each layer strengthens the next, and together they shape a version of you that feels true, confident, and grounded. Identity clarifying questions. 1. Who do I want to become in the next year? Not just what do I want to achieve. 2. What small behaviors already make me proud of myself? 3. Which old stories about myself no longer feel true? 4. What type of person would naturally do the habits I want to build? 5. What tiny action could I repeat daily that reflects the identity I want? 6. When do I feel most like my best self? 7. What identities am I holding on to out of habit, not truth? 8. How do I want to talk to myself when I struggle? 9. What values matter most to me right now? 10. What identity would make my daily life feel lighter, not heavier? Chapter 4. Designing your pathway. A pathway in self-improvement is the clear route you follow to move from where you are now to the person you want to become. It is not a single action or a strict plan. Instead, it is a direction made of small steps that guide your growth. A pathway shows you how change can happen little by little instead of all at once. In self-improvement, a pathway gives you structure without pressure. It helps you see the next step instead of worrying about the whole journey. When you know your pathway, you don't get lost trying to do everything at once. You focus on the next tiny move that keeps you heading forward. A good pathway is simple, flexible, and easy to follow. It is built from small behaviors you can repeat every day. Over time, these repeated actions create progress, and the progress leads you closer to the identity you want. A pathway doesn't promise perfection, but it gives you a steady way to grow, one step at a time. Clarity beats motivation because clarity shows you exactly what to do next, while motivation comes and goes without warning. Motivation feels good, but it is unreliable. Some days you wake up excited and ready. Other days you feel heavy, distracted, or tired. If you rely only on motivation, your progress will rise and fall with your mood. Clarity is different. Clarity gives simple instructions. It removes guesswork, confusion, and hesitation. When you know the next tiny step, just one step, you don't need a burst of motivation to begin. You can start even when you feel low, busy, or unsure. Clear steps make action easier, and easy action leads to consistency. When you are unclear, everything feels harder. You waste energy thinking, planning, and wondering if you're doing the right thing. That mental fog drains your willpower. But when you have clarity, the path is clean. You don't argue with yourself, and you don't overthink. You follow the next tiny step without stress. Clarity also creates momentum. Once you begin, even in a small way, your brain wakes up and says, "We're doing this." That little spark often brings motivation afterward. Instead of waiting to feel motivated before you act first and let motivation catch up. In the end, clarity wins because it works every day, not just on good days. It turns big dreams into small, doable steps. It keeps you moving even when your feelings are unpredictable. With clarity, progress becomes a habit instead of a struggle. A simple 3-step formula can help anyone design a personal pathway that feels clear and doable. It doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, the simpler it is, the easier it becomes to follow it every day. Messilian Step 1. Define the direction, not the destination. You start by choosing the general direction you want your life to move toward. You don't need to know every detail. You only need to know the kind of person you want to become. Healthier, calmer, more focused, more confident, or more disciplined. A direction is flexible. It gives you room to grow while still pointing you forward. Step 2. Break the direction into small, repeatable actions. Once you know the direction, choose the smallest actions that move you toward it. These actions should be so simple that you can do them even on a tired or busy day. Instead of get fit, choose walk for 2 minutes. Instead of be more organized, choose clear one small space. Tiny actions keep the pathway alive, even when life becomes chaotic. Step 3. Create a daily cue that reminds you to follow the path. A pathway works best when something anchors it into your day. Pick a cue, a moment, a place, or a routine that reminds you to take your small action. It could be brushing your teeth, waking up, making coffee, getting home from work, or closing your laptop. When your cue appears, your action follows. Over time, the cue and the action link together, making your pathway automatic. This three-step formula keeps your pathway simple, consistent, and achievable. It turns vague dreams into small steps you can actually take, day after day. Breaking a big goal into micro steps often starts with a moment of honesty. A person looks at the goal, feels the weight of it, and realizes they can't do it all at once. So they decide to make it smaller, small enough that it no longer feels scary. Imagine someone who wants to write a book. At first, the goal feels overwhelming. They picture hundreds of pages, months of work, and countless hours of thinking and rewriting. The size of the goal makes them freeze. But then they decide to break it down. Instead of write a book, they choose one tiny step. Write one sentence. The next morning, they sit down and write that single sentence. It takes less than a minute, but it moves the project forward. The day after that, they write another one. Some days they write only a sentence, and on other days, that single sentence turns into a paragraph or even a page. But the pressure is gone. The micro step keeps them moving. As the days pass, the goal no longer feels impossible. Each tiny step becomes a piece of the larger picture. The writer may not notice it happening, but sentence by sentence, the book takes shape. What once felt too big now feels manageable because it has been broken into steps small enough for daily progress. This is how someone reaches a big goal, through micro steps that remove fear, build consistency, and slowly turn a dream into something real. Pathways prevent overwhelm by giving the mind something it can handle. When a person faces a big goal or a major change, their brain often jumps straight to the hardest parts. It imagines all the steps, all the time needed, and all the work involved. This creates a heavy feeling, almost like standing at the bottom of a mountain with no clear way up. That feeling of, I don't even know where to start, is what creates overwhelm. A pathway takes that huge mountain and turns it into a simple trail. Instead of thinking about everything at once, the person only has to focus on the next tiny step. The pathway gives structure and order. It says, do this one thing now, and the rest will come later. That clarity removes the mental fog that usually makes people freeze. Imagine someone trying to get healthier. Without a pathway, they think they have to change their eating, their workouts, their routines, and even their mindset all at once. It feels impossible. But when they create a pathway, everything becomes lighter. They might decide to start with drinking 1 glass of water in the morning. That's it, one step. Because the step is small and clear, their mind relaxes. They don't have to solve everything today. Over time, each small step builds a sense of order. The pathway becomes a guide, and having a guide removes uncertainty. Instead of worrying about doing everything perfectly, the person simply follows the next step. And with every small action, they move forward without feeling buried by the size of the journey. Pathways protect people from overwhelm by turning confusion into clarity, chaos into direction, and big goals into tiny actions that anyone can take. Pathways reduce decision fatigue by removing the constant need to choose what to do next. When people try to improve their lives without a clear plan, they end up making dozens of small decisions every day. When to start, how much to do, what step to take, and whether it's even worth it. Each choice drains a little mental energy. By the end of the day, they feel tired, not because of the work they did, but because of all the decisions they had to make. A pathway solves this problem by giving the mind a set of simple, pre-made steps. Instead of deciding every day, the person already knows what to do. The action is chosen in advance, so the brain doesn't have to negotiate with itself. It doesn't have to ask, should I do this now? Or, where do I begin? The pathway answers those questions automatically. Imagine someone who wants to build a reading habit. Without a pathway, they might ask themselves every day, should I read now? What should I read? How long should I read? Do I have the energy? Each question eats up mental strength. But with a pathway, they make one clear rule. As soon as I sit on the couch after dinner, I read one page. The cue is clear. The action is set. No decisions needed. This makes the habit easier because the person's mind doesn't get stuck in debate. The fewer decisions they have to make, the more energy they have for actually doing the action. And as the pathway becomes consistent, the actions become automatic. The brain doesn't treat them like choices anymore. It treats them like routines. By reducing decisions, pathways protect your energy, keep you focused, and make self-improvement feel simple instead of exhausting. A well-designed pathway can be seen in the life of someone trying to get back in shape after years of inactivity. At first, the idea of going to the gym, running, or sticking to a full workout plan feels overwhelming. They know they need to move more, but the gap between where they are and where they want to be seems too wide. So instead of forcing themselves into a complicated routine, they build a simple pathway that fits into their real life. Every morning after brushing their teeth, they put on their walking shoes. That's the entire first step. They don't promise themselves a workout. They don't set a time limit. They don't pressure themselves to reach a certain distance. The pathway is just brush teeth, put on shoes. Once the shoes are on, taking a short walk feels natural. At first, they walk for only 2 minutes. That's enough. It's a small action, but it keeps the pathway intact. Over the next few weeks, 2 minutes often turns into 5, then 10, and sometimes more. But even on busy days, they still complete the pathway because the first step is so easy that skipping it feels harder than doing it. As months pass, the pathway expands by itself. They begin adding a little stretching after their walk. Later, they include a few body weight exercises. None of this feels forced because the foundation is already there. The pathway grows because it is simple, consistent, and anchored to a daily moment. This real-life example shows how a well-designed pathway doesn't rely on motivation or willpower. It relies on clarity. It turns a huge goal, getting fit, into a series of small actions that fit seamlessly into daily life. By focusing on a tiny starting point, the person creates a trail they can follow effortlessly, one easy step at a time. Adjusting a pathway when life changes is not about starting over. It's about reshaping the steps so they fit your new reality. Life never stays the same. Jobs shift, routines change, responsibilities grow, and energy levels rise and fall. A pathway that worked last month may feel impossible today, and that's normal. The key is to bend the pathway, not break it. The first step is to be honest about your new situation. Instead of blaming yourself for struggling, take a moment to look at what has changed. Maybe your schedule is tighter. Maybe you're more tired than before. Maybe new responsibilities have taken over part of your day. Understanding the change helps you see why the pathway needs adjusting. Next, shrink the steps. If your pathway used to include 15 minutes of action, bring it down to 1 or 2 minutes. If your pathway depended on a morning routine that no longer exists, move the action to a time that fits your current life. The goal is not to keep the old system alive. It's to build a new one that works today. A good pathway should feel like a gentle fit, not a tight squeeze. Then reconnect the action to a new cue. If you no longer have the same daily triggers, for example, if your commute changed or your work hours shifted, choose a new anchor. It might be after making coffee, after getting home, after closing your laptop, or just before bed. The cue is what keeps the pathway stable, even when everything else feels unpredictable. Finally, remind yourself that changing a pathway is a sign of growth, not failure. Life changes, and your systems should change with it. When you adjust a pathway, you prove that you're committed to progress, not perfection. You're choosing what works, not what used to work. A flexible pathway is a lasting one. By reshaping it around your life, you keep moving forward, even when the world around you shifts. Here's a simple template readers can use to map out a pathway. It's clear, easy to follow, and can be filled in like a guide. Pathway mapping template. Anant. 1. My direction, who I want to become. 2. My micro step, the smallest action I can repeat daily. 3. My daily cue, what'll remind me to do it. 4. When I will do it, time or moment. 5. Why this matters to me, my personal reason. 6. How I will adjust it if life changes. This simple layout helps readers design a pathway they can follow every day, no matter how busy or unpredictable life becomes. Rigid and adaptive pathways may look similar at first, but they feel completely different once you try to follow them. A rigid pathway demands that life stay the same. An adaptive pathway understands that life never does. A rigid pathway is strict. It tells you exactly what to do, exactly when to do it, and leaves no room for change. It expects perfect conditions and perfect consistency. If anything unexpected happens, a busy week, a family emergency, bad weather, low energy, the rigid pathway breaks. Missing one step feels like failure, and failure makes people quit. A rigid pathway is built on pressure, not progress. An adaptive pathway works differently. It bends with your life instead of fighting against it. The core direction stays the same, but the steps can shrink, grow, or shift depending on what your day looks like. If you're tired, the step becomes smaller. If you're energized, you can do more. If your routine changes, the cue changes with it. An adaptive pathway stays alive because it's flexible. Rigid pathways say, do it this exact way or you've failed. Adaptive pathways say, do something small so you keep moving. Rigid pathways depend on perfect motivation. Adaptive pathways depend on tiny consistency. Rigid pathways collapse under pressure. Adaptive pathways adjust and continue. This difference matters because real progress doesn't happen in a perfect world. It happens in a real one, full of surprises, stress, noise, and constant change. People don't need a system that breaks the moment life gets messy. They need one that adapts, supports them, and keeps them moving forward. That is the power of adaptive pathway. It isn't weaker than a rigid one. It's stronger because it survives real life. Chapter 5. The Architecture of Behavior. Environment influences behavior more than willpower, because it silently shapes what feels easy, what feels hard, and what feels natural to do. People often believe that success comes from being strong enough or disciplined enough. But the truth is that the environment usually decides which actions require effort and which actions require almost none. Imagine walking into a room with a TV remote on the couch, snacks on the table, and your phone buzzing beside you. Even with strong willpower, distraction becomes the default. The environment is designed for comfort, not focus. Now picture a different room. Your phone in another space, a book on the table, and your workspace clean. Without forcing yourself, your behavior shifts. You read more. You think more clearly. You focus longer. Nothing about your willpower changed. Only the environment did. This happens because the brain likes the path of least resistance. When something is easy to reach, easy to see, or easy to start, the brain leans toward it naturally. When something is hidden, complicated, or far away, the brain avoids it. Willpower becomes a backup plan, and backup plans run out quickly. Most people blame themselves when they struggle, thinking they're lazy or weak. But often, the environment is quietly pushing them in the opposite direction. A cluttered space pushes the mind to feel scattered. A kitchen full of junk food pushes eating habits in the wrong direction. A bedroom full of screens pushes sleep further away. Willpower can fight these forces for a moment, but not forever. On the other hand, a supportive environment makes good behavior automatic. Putting workout clothes where you can see them makes exercise easier to start. Preparing healthy foods in advance makes better choices almost effortless. Keeping tools, books, or supplies within reach turns positive behavior into the default instead of a challenge. This is why environment matters more than willpower. Willpower works for a moment, environment works all day. When you shape the space around you, you shape the actions that feel natural, and eventually, you shape the person you become. A room designed for success feels like it gently guides you toward the person you want to become. A room designed for failure pulls you away from your goals without saying a word. The difference is subtle, but the impact is huge. A room designed for success is calm, simple, and clear. When you walk in, you know exactly what the space is meant for. If it's a workspace, the desk is clean. The tools you need are easy to reach, and distractions are out of sight. Your notebook is open. Your water is nearby. Your phone is in another room or tucked away. The lighting is soft, but bright enough to help you stay alert. Everything in the room supports your focus, so you don't have to waste energy fighting temptation or searching for what you need. The room itself helps you start. A room designed for failure looks busy and loud. Everything competes for your attention. Clothes on the floor, dishes on the desk, notifications lighting up your phone, and a TV remote sitting exactly where your hand can grab it. The moment you enter, your mind feels scattered. You want to focus, but the environment pushes you toward the easiest, most distracting option. Instead of starting your work, you pick up your makes progress feel uphill. In the success room, good habits feel natural. In the failure room, bad habits feel automatic. In the success room, your environment works with you. In the failure room, your environment works against you. The truth is, your behavior is often a reflection of your surroundings. Change the room, and you often change the outcome, without using a single drop of willpower. Cues shape automatic actions because they quietly tell your brain what to do next without needing your permission. A cue can be a sound, a place, a time of day, an object you see, or even an emotion you feel. Over time, your brain learns to connect the cue with a specific action, and eventually the action happens almost on its own. Think about how you feel when your phone buzzes. You don't stop and think, should I check it? Your hand reaches for it automatically. The buzz is the cue, and checking your phone is the action. The same thing happens when you walk into your kitchen and smell coffee, or when you sit in your car and immediately reach for your seatbelt. The cue activates a habit that has been repeated so many times it no longer requires thinking. Cues work because the brain loves patterns. Whenever you repeat an action in the same situation, your brain connects the situation, the cue, to the behavior. After enough repetition, the cue triggers the action faster than your conscious mind can catch up. It feels like the habit happens by itself, but really, the cue is pulling the strings. This can work for or against you. If your cue is sitting on the couch with the TV remote nearby, your brain learns to relax and watch something. If your cue is opening your laptop in bed, your brain learns to scroll instead of sleep. But if you design better cues, you get better automatic actions. Putting a book on your pillow becomes a cue to read before bed. Placing your running shoes by the door becomes a cue to walk. Setting a glass of water on the counter becomes a cue to hydrate. Tosir. The power of cues is that they remove the need for motivation. You don't have to force yourself. The cue does the work by sending a signal your brain already recognizes. When you learn to control your cues, you begin to control your habits. And when your habits become automatic, your progress becomes effortless. Namely, here is a clear, simple list of environmental triggers that help good habits. Each one is something you can place, adjust, or position in your daily space to make positive actions easier and more automatic. A water bottle placed on your desk to remind you to drink more. A book on your pillow to encourage reading before bed. Workout clothes laid out the night before to make exercise easier to start. A clean desk to signal your brain that it's time to focus. A bowl of fruit on the counter instead of snacks in the cabinets. A to-do list visible on your wall or fridge. Shoes by the door to cue a short walk. A journal placed next to your morning coffee mug. A charging station in another room to reduce phone distraction. A tidy space where everything has a place, making action feel smoother. These small environmental triggers shape your behavior gently, without needing extra willpower. They act like silent reminders pointing you in the right direction. Your digital environment is just as powerful as your physical space, and sometimes even more. Your phone, apps, and notifications shape your behavior all day long, often without you noticing. Designing this environment with intention can make good habits easier and bad habits less tempting. One of the biggest parts of digital design is controlling notifications. Every ping, buzz, or pop-up pulls your attention away from what matters. When your phone constantly interrupts you, your mind learns to live in a distracted state. But when you turn off non-essential notifications, your phone becomes quieter. You check it less often, you stay focused longer, and your stress levels drop. A calmer phone creates a calmer mind. Your apps play a huge role too. Most people keep their most distracting apps on their home screen, so the moment they unlock their phone, temptation is right there waiting for them. It takes almost no willpower to tap. A helpful digital design trick is to move distracting apps, social media, games, endless scrolling, off the home screen or into a folder. When they are hidden, you don't reach for them automatically. You create one extra step, and that step is often enough to break the habit. At the same time, you can make positive apps easier to reach. Put your reading app on the first page. Place your notes app where you can see it. Keep tools for learning, planning, or creativity front and center. When you open your phone and see helpful options first, your behavior shifts naturally. Another part of digital design is setting boundaries. You might decide to charge your phone in another room at night so you sleep better. You might set app timers so your device tells you when you've reached your limit. You might create a focus mode that blocks everything except the essentials. These small adjustments protect your attention instead of draining it. Your digital environment is not something you should fight against. It's something you can shape. When your phone stops pulling you into distraction and starts supporting your goals, you gain hours of focus, energy, and clarity without needing more willpower. Rearranging objects can shift behavior because it changes what your brain notices first, what feels easy to reach, and what feels natural to do. Your mind is constantly taking cues from your surroundings, even when you aren't aware of it. When you move objects around, you change the signals your environment sends to you, and those signals shape your actions. Think about a kitchen. If the cookies are on the counter and the healthy food is hidden in the back of a cabinet, you're far more likely to grab the cookies. It's not because you're weak. It's because the environment makes the easy choice, the default one. But if you rearrange the space so that fruit is on the counter and the cookies are hidden away, your behavior shifts without any extra effort. You start choosing differently because your brain responds to what it sees first. This principle works everywhere. If your desk is covered with clutter, your mind feels scattered and you drift toward distractions. But if you rearrange it so your workspace is clean, your tools are easy to reach, and your phone is out of sight, you slip into focus more easily. The environment nudges you into the behavior you want. You can also rearrange objects to build new habits. If you want to drink more water, put a water bottle where you sit most often. If you want to stretch in the morning, place your yoga mat next to your bed. If you want to read more, keep a book in the spot where you usually pick up your phone. Placing objects in your path, you reduce friction. The habit becomes simpler because the action is already prepared for you. Rearranging objects works because it removes the need for willpower. You don't have to force yourself or remember your intentions. The environment reminds you. Small shifts in the placement of objects create small shifts in your behavior, and over time, those small shifts add up to meaningful change. 1. Story: changing a room to change a life. Ava had been stuck for months. Every morning she woke up tired, dragging herself through a day that felt like a loop she couldn't exit. Her room reflected it. Piles of laundry, a desk buried under papers, a bed surrounded by half-finished projects. It wasn't messy because she didn't care. It was messy because she felt overwhelmed. And the more overwhelmed she felt, the less she changed anything. One Saturday, after hitting another wall of frustration, she decided to try something small. Not a life overhaul, not a grand plan, just one tiny change. She cleared her nightstand. It took 5 minutes. She wiped the surface, put a single lamp and a single book on it, and threw away the old receipts and empty cups stacked there. When she stepped back, the space looked lighter. She felt something loosen in her chest. The next day, she rearranged her desk. She put her laptop in the center, a notebook to the side, and a plant in the corner. She moved her phone charger to the far wall so she wouldn't keep scrolling while trying to work. For the first time in months, she sat down and actually focused. By midweek, she tackled her closet, one shelf at a time. She pulled out clothes she never wore, folded ones she loved, and created a small section with outfits she could grab quickly on rushed mornings. Suddenly, deciding what to wear didn't drain her before the day even began. As the room changed, Ava changed with it. She found herself drinking more water because the bottle on her desk reminded her. She started journaling again because the notebook was now visible instead of buried. She stopped staying up late watching videos because her phone wasn't within reach of her bed. Her room became a cue, not for chaos, but for calm. 2 weeks later, Ava realized she was waking up with more energy. She was getting things done. She was making decisions faster, not because she had become a different person overnight, but because her environment now supported the person she wanted to be. The room didn't magically fix her life, but it made the right actions easier and the wrong ones harder. And because of those small environmental shifts, Ava built momentum she hadn't felt in years. By changing her room, she created a space that helped her change herself. A cluttered space weighs on you in ways you don't always notice. When you walk into a messy room, your eyes jump from pile to pile, and your mind tries to process everything at once. Even if you tell yourself you're used to it, your brain still registers every object as unfinished work. Every stack of papers whispers, "Deal with me." Every piece of laundry says, "You haven't done enough today." Over time, this constant background noise chips away at your energy. You feel tired faster. You lose focus more easily. You may even become frustrated with yourself, wondering why you can't seem to stay organized, when the real problem is simply the environment around you. A cluttered space doesn't just make you feel overwhelmed. It makes small tasks feel bigger, and big tasks feel impossible. It slows your thinking without you noticing. It creates the emotional equivalent of static, always humming, always present. Even if you try to relax in a messy room, your mind stays half alert, scanning the chaos. This is why people often feel more stressed at home than anywhere else. Their space is asking for attention they don't have the energy to give. A clean space feels completely different. When you walk into a room that's clear and open, your mind becomes clear and open too. There's a sense of calm that settles in your body. Your breathing softens. Your shoulders drop. You feel lighter, even if nothing else in your life has changed. A tidy room gives you one powerful message. You are capable. You have control. You can start again. A clean space supports your goals without you needing willpower. A clear desk invites you to work. A made bed invites you to rest. A tidy kitchen invites you to cook instead of scroll on your phone. In a clean room, your environment becomes an ally, not an enemy. It helps you move forward instead of holding you back. The emotional shift is so strong because your environment constantly communicates with your mind. A cluttered room reminds you of everything unfinished. A clean room reminds you of possibility. One drains your energy, the other restores it. One makes you feel stuck, the other helps you move. In many ways, the space around you becomes the space inside you. A cluttered room creates internal chaos, even if your life is fine. A clean room creates internal peace, even if your life is complicated. When you change your surroundings, you change how you feel, how you think, and how you act. And sometimes, cleaning your space is the first tiny action that opens the door to a calmer, more confident version of yourself. Environmental Audit Checklist. Before you begin, take a slow walk through your space and pay attention to how each area makes you feel. Use this checklist to notice what supports you and what holds you back. Physical space. Is there clutter on surfaces? Are items easy to find when you need them? Do you have clear areas for work, rest, and hobbies? Are there objects that no longer serve you? Is your space clean enough to feel calm? Habit cues. Are good habits obvious and easy to start? Are bad habits hidden or out of reach? Do you see reminders of what matters to you? Are healthy choices the default in your environment? Are distractions too visible or too accessible? Lighting comfort. Is the lighting bright enough for focus? Is there natural light available? Is your chair or seating comfortable? Does the room temperature support productivity? Do you feel physically relaxed in this space? Digital environment. Are notifications under control? Is your home screen organized or chaotic? Do you keep distracting apps in sight? Is your workspace free of digital clutter? Are your devices set up to help, not hinder? Energy flow. Do you feel calm when you enter the room? Do certain areas make you tense or stressed? Is the space easy to move around in? Does the room inspire you or drain you? Do you feel supported by your surroundings? Immediate action list. What is one thing you can remove right now? What is one thing you can clean in 2 minutes? What is one area you can improve by 1% today? What helpful cue can you place in plain sight? What harmful cue can you hide or remove? This checklist helps you see your environment with new eyes and make tiny changes that lead to big improvements. One small change in your environment can make consistency feel natural instead of forced. When something in your space nudges you in the right direction, you don't have to rely on willpower or motivation. You simply follow the path that's already there. A single adjustment can shift the whole rhythm of your day. Imagine placing your running shoes by the door each night. It seems tiny, almost too small to matter. But that one change removes a whole layer of friction the next morning. You don't have to search for your shoes, think about where you left them, or debate whether it's worth going outside. The decision is halfway made before you even wake up. The environment takes the pressure off your mind. This works because your surroundings constantly guide your actions, whether you notice it or not. When a helpful cue is visible, you take the right action more often without trying harder. When you remove a barrier, your routine becomes easier to repeat. Over time, that ease becomes consistency. One environmental change can create a small ripple that turns into steady progress. You might place a water bottle on your desk and drink more. You might leave a book on your pillow and read every night. You might clear your workspace and feel focused each time you sit down. the action stays the same.